Math, we're going to take care of some problems involving completing the square. Okay, so let's take a look at our first problem. We're going to solve the equation by finding the square roots. So again, what we want to do is we want to create a perfect square binomial on the left-hand side. So as part of the first step, if you recall correctly, what we're going to do is we're going to subtract the c value from both sides. We end up with x squared plus 2x is equal to 8. Now I want to figure out what the value is of this c value that makes it a perfect square trinomial. And in fact, we already had it as a perfect square trinomial. So we want to add 1 again to both sides. So we're going to end up with x squared plus 2x plus 1 is equal to 9. So let's remove this back again, as we went in the wrong direction. So I create my squared binomial. X plus 1 squared is equal to 9. I take the square root of both sides. I have x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 9, which is 3. And then I subtract 1 from both sides, and I get x is equal to 2 and negative 4. All right, second equation, 2x squared plus 16x plus 32 is equal to 14. Okay, now I want to divide both sides by 2. So I end up with x squared plus 8x plus 16 is equal to 7. Well, I can see that the left-hand side of the equation is already a perfect square trinomial, which factors to x plus 4 squared is equal to 7. Then I take the square root of both sides, and I end up with x plus 4 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 7. I subtract 4 from both sides. Now I have plus or minus the square root of 7 minus 4 is equal to x. Okay, next set of questions. I'm going to find the value of c that makes the expression a perfect square binomial. Then rewrite the expression as a square of a binomial. Right, well, now I just recall that in order to find the c value, it's just b over 2 squared. So I take my b value, divide it by 2. So it's 4 over 2 squared, which is equal to 2 squared, which is equal to 4. So my equation, my c value is going to be 4. My perfect square trinomial, x squared plus 4x plus 4 as a squared binomial is going to be x plus 2 squared. In my next example, I have x squared minus 5x plus c. So again, I take the b value, minus 5 over 2 squared, and I get 2.5 squared, and that ends up being my c value. I take a look at my calculator and I figure out that 2.5 squared is equal to 6.25. So now my perfect square trinomial is x squared minus 5x plus 6.25. Or I can rewrite my squared binomial as x minus 2.5 squared. Okay, next set of problems. I'm going to solve the equation by completing the square. So remember the steps that are involved in solving the equation for x. I'm going to add 2 to both sides. So I have x squared minus 2x is equal to 2. I'm going to create a perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side by adding a c value that makes it a perfect square trinomial. The c value is b over 2 squared. So I have negative 2 over 2 squared, which is equal to 1. So now I have x squared, I'm going to add 1 to both sides, minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 2 plus 1. My squared binomial in this case is going to be x minus 1 squared is equal to now 3. I take the square root of both sides, x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3. Then I add I add 1 to both sides. Now I have x is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3 plus 1. And that's the answer for number 5. Number 6, Same process, I'm going to add 10 to both sides. I have x squared minus 14x is equal to 10. I figure out that my c value is going to be 49, so b over 2 squared is 49. X squared minus 14x plus 49 is equal to 10 plus 49, or 59. I know that my squared binomial from this case is just going to be x minus b over 2. So x minus b over 2, which would be x minus 7 squared, and that's equal to 57. I take the square root of both sides, and now I have x minus 7 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 57. I add 7 to both sides. X is equal to plus or minus the square root of 57 minus 7, and that's my solution. Okay, now I'm going to write a couple of the quadratics in vertex form, moving from standard to vertex form. So here I have a quadratic in standard form. I'm going to move it to vertex form by completing the square. Again, I'm going to add the current c value to both sides. Now I have x squared minus 2x is equal to 2. I add my c value to make this a perfect square binomial, perfect square trinomial. X squared minus 2x plus 1 is equal to 2 plus 1. My squared binomial is x minus 1 squared is equal to 3. I take the square root of both sides. I have x minus 1 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3. Then I add 1 to both sides. X is equal to plus or minus the square root of 3 plus 1. Well, that's the solution for x. Now, if I want to rewrite this in vertex form, I'm going to subtract the 3 now from both sides, and I end up with x minus 1 squared minus 3 is equal to 0. My vertex is at 1, negative 3. Okay, same process. It looks like I have the same equation, so I won't do number 8, and I think we're all done.